Guys, welcome to Real Talk. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville Network today, presented by Ross Mortgage. Scott Morris and Ross Mortgage, who you want to call when you want to get that loan for your primary residence, an investment property, a beach house. Scott Morris, undoubtedly a trusted advisor in the mortgage game, guys. Judah Wickhauer is our director, and today's program, just from the conversation I had off air with Gary Palmer, is going to be absolutely fantastic. Judah, if you could go to the four-shot when you're ready, and let's welcome our panel to the program. Scott Morris, Keith Smith, and Gary Palmer. Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good morning,
Amazing.
guys.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. We'll start with Gary Palmer, then I'll get out of the way. Gary, before we talk shop, introduce yourself to everybody that's watching.
I'm Gary Palmer. I'm principal broker owner of Town Realty, also a local developer, investor, married to my beautiful wife, Ashley Palmer, and father of two. I got a 4.5-month-old, Laker, and a 12-year-old son, Noah.
Fantastic. Recently married, got his hands in a lot of different pots, which we will identify. Scott Morris, jump in here with Gary Palmer and Keith Smith on today's show.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Hearing that you vacation with small children is amazing to me. I think the park is a vacation for that's a lot of work.
Maybe the backyard.
Backyard. That's right. That's right. No, that's awesome, man. I'm just glad, amazing start to the year so far. Glad to see everybody. Want to get on, kind of talk through some. Keith's got hit me at like 6 a.m. this morning with some scenarios.
Actually, it was earlier than that.
I'm giving you a little credit, for today. So I'm excited to kind of jump in and see what's out there for those that are looking and what we can do to help people buy some homes.
So I'm excited to sit down and have a conversation with you, Gary. I've been wanting to do this forever. So thank you for setting this up, Scott. We've been doing this for 260-something shows. I can't remember the number. And it's really great to have a developer on the table. I'm a recovering developer. Okay. I've built like 600 homes in my career. So wow. I'm excited to geek out with you if the conversation comes up. Yeah. What areas do you focus on mostly?
Right now, my recent project is over on Riverdale, off East High Street.
Give them your background. I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay,
How you started in integrity.
Okay, yeah. So I moved here, went to JMU, moved here, started up Integrity Home Contracting with John Struckman. Did that for 10 years, sold out of that company. While I was with Integrity, I would buy 1 or 2 rental properties a year, just dabbled in mainly single-family residential. Nothing crazy. I'd flip a home here or there. And I realized about 10 years after being a contractor and yelling at contractors every morning that just wasn't my thing, right? That I enjoyed real estate. I wanted to go real estate full time. So in 2015, I kind of made the venture. Quickly realized there was an opportunity for Town Realty to help friends and people buy and sell houses. But I continued with the development. I continued investing. My recent project right now is over on Riverdale. It was the nursing home over there, and I'm redeveloping that into 13 apartments. May put a little dog park in the back. I've got a few other developments on High Street that I've done and already redeveloped. Have some small multifamily, but I'm not doing single family construction like you. So everything I'm doing right now is mainly small to medium sized apartments. That's kind of my focus.
Do me a favor, turn your head left and right a little bit. Where's the gray hair?
I know, dude. Let this look easy, homie.
I don't know. I think it's coming. Sleep deprivation's kicking in, so I'm sure the gray hair comes after that, right?
So I did a bunch of development, created lots and commercial spaces and all that kind of stuff over the years. And I apologize. Jerry corrected me. I should have let you introduce yourself. But I just got so excited about having developer conversations because we get asked these questions all the time, and maybe somebody other than myself can answer them. So I'm excited about them.
I mean, and I found this out before the show started. Got his license when he was 18. Put himself through college. Selling real estate as an 18-year-old. Now a broker.
Hustler. That's amazing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's immediately what came to mind, Scott.
Yeah.
Is hustler. I mean, let's go down that road.
That's scrappy.
Someone who making stuff happen, Scott Morris.
Well, let's ask him about it. I mean, that's at 18, I was in the Marine Corps, just being a hardhead. So that
hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed.
Just checking.
Now I'm just not in the Marine Corps anymore.
What is it about real estate you like, Gary Palmer?
Every home, every deal is different. Every person's different. It's interesting. It keeps me excited. I could never work a job 8 to 5 in an office doing
amen.
the same thing over and over. It was never me. I knew from early on that I could never work for anybody either. So I knew, it was my destiny to work for myself from a pretty early age.
I feel the same way.
So talk about that. Talk about how that feels. I come from that too. I got out of the Corps and never worked for anybody but myself. But explain that. Talk about how your day goes.
Well, it's, there's pros and cons. I don't have a boss over my shoulder telling me to check in at 8 and do this and do that. So you have to be self-motivated. So I think keeping the focus on getting up at 8 and doing the things and the prioritization of, for me as a broker, developer, investor, every week, day is an adventure as far as what is the focus, what's the priority, because there's always people kicking and screaming, right? Keith. I mean, in real estate, when you've got a lot of transactions going, you have to focus on what's most important, and you still got a family and you got to balance your life. So I find that being the everyday challenge that keeps life fun.
Well, congratulations. We've only known each other for a few minutes, and I can tell that you're doing it. You're doing a great job,
Doing
sir.
what I can.
This guy's fantastic. We got questions already coming in for Scott and Gary, and we'll get to those questions. First, we'll identify some of the people that watching. We got the homie Scott Williams. Giving us some props. Love you, Scott Williams. Catherine Strickland, watching the program, says hello to everybody that's watching the show. Live on every social platform possible. Your wife watching, Molly Morgan watching, Dale Jones watching, Nick Hill watching, Culpeper, Madison, Lynchburg, Southwestern Virginia, Richmond, Short Pump, Charlotte, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, all on the feed as we speak. All right, gentlemen, let's talk markets. Powell's got a meeting today. We anticipate some chatter on rate hikes again. Scott, we'll get you first. GP, we'll get you following Scott. 1 month close to being down in 2022. The common denominator has been inventory shortage.
Going away.
Not going away anytime soon. So how do we navigate this market? We'll go from the broker's perspective, and then we'll talk agents here, and then we got a case study we want to get to as well from a viewer from yesterday's show. Scott Morris, anywhere you want to go.
So I'm just shocked again to see so much green on the screen. I think if the talk is going to be rate hikes and faster rate hikes and taking some of this QM and off the table, are they expecting something more dovish coming out to see everything that I'm seeing in front of me over there? I don't know. I would expect either no movement or not that.
We'll see. We'll get Gary Palmer's perspective here in a matter of moments. Like we usually have on Wednesdays, multiple mortgage brokers, officers watching the program now. We'll acknowledge Emily Ann Coulter watching of Atlantic Bay Mortgage.
Hey.
Questions coming in, all right, for Scott Morris like they normally do on Wednesday. All right, GP, jump in here. What have you seen so far? Inventory shortage, rate hikes. The demand is still there. We just have no rooftops on the market right now.
So I thought last year rates were going to hike up. I thought the Fed had to kind of hedge against inflation. So I'm surprised that rates are still where they are. I don't know, Scott. You're the expert. You're in this field. I mean, you tell me. Keith brought these crystal balls here
And a wand.
I was wrong last year. I mean, I really was. I really thought early after COVID, I really thought rates were going to go up. And they really didn't. By and large, they didn't. They didn't impact the market. We're 2022. I think it's interesting. I can say that I tell my clients, don't let interest rates, dictate whether you buy or not, because there's a lot of other factors that go into buying right now.
I literally had that conversation in the parking garage with someone on the way here.
And what'd you say? It's historically cheap money? Even if it goes up half a point, who cares? This is historically cheap money?
You're renting for $1,600 a month and you're worried about the future. What do you think with more people coming into of age that need to be living somewhere? do you see your rental cost increasing year over year? It's $1,600 now. You're worried about an $1,800 mortgage when in 3 years you're going to be paying $1,800 for rent.
23.5 million millennials
About to jump in.
about to jump in. That's
That's a lot.
a bigger number than the boomer generation.
And looking to buy. We're talking about,
Oh, yeah.
that's to almost 10% of American population. And really, that's not a realistic stat.
Or
because
having
a lot
to
of them are
rent.
kids that can't buy.
Or
homes.
having to rent.
Yeah.
And where the rooftops are at. I mean, Gary's he's ahead of the game with the apartments, but, millions of people, bro.
Yeah, millions of people. Judah Whitcar, you got a message for us on the panel? Let us know if you do. We'll go over the case study that came up yesterday on the show. So, friend of the program, loyal viewer, Jamie Turner, mayor of Gordonsville. Okay,
Jamie.
This guy just bought a massive house in Culpeper. Okay, he is renting his townhome in Orange County. Get ready for this: 1,998 square feet, 2 bedrooms. 2 bathrooms, Orange County. How much rent do you think he's asking a month?
I can't chime in because I
Yeah,
know.
you know.
I know because I was here.
Yeah, 1,500 is my
Okay,
number.
you
as
guys
well.
obviously are in the business. $1,600.
Okay.
$1,600.
But that's
bidding more
That's an
for $1,600. People fighting tooth and nail to rent this place in Orange County. 1,600, 2 bedroom, 2 bath.
3 bedroom, 2 baths, and jump in if I'm wrong. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths rental in the Charlottesville, Albemarle, Urban Ring. It's got a 2 in front of it.
Yeah, normally.
Yeah, so 2,000 and up.
So this is Fredericksburg, single family, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, $1,600. So a little more rooftops, a little less expensive. Richmond's kind of similar as well, but that's not going to last forever.
Plus, they're going up, right? They're
That's what I'm
projected
saying,
this
yeah.
year to go up 7.1%, 2022. I think they're going to go up a little higher than that by the tail of the end of the year. So, look, what happened, what Jerry leaded us into this is this conversation we had before was, a 3-bedroom, 2 baths. They're renting somewhere between 16. This was my text, by the way, him at 5:30 in the morning. 16 to 2,400 square feet. So let's take a typical buyer. We're looking at the buy side, right? Not necessarily the rent side. So it's assuming they're qualified, income qualified, assuming they have a 625 to 650 credit, assuming they have enough cash, 3% down payment, right?
3.5. It's over that. There's going to be FHA, so 3.5 down and 3% closing cost, 6.5 total.
So roughly 6%. They got like $5,000 worth of credit card, a little bit of student debt, yada yada yada, down the road. Like right, we have a client, right? That's our client. We pick up the phone or we send a text and say, how much house can they buy? And that number somewhere, I rounded up his numbers a little bit, somewhere around 275 to 325, because I'm going to lean a little pressure on him. Oh, come on, you can do it, you can do it. On top of it. So the question was, where are they going to go? Right? And I ran those numbers, and it's not pretty. So, and we talk about all the time about, this rubber band going out. Normally, I look at Charlottesville, Albemarle, Nelson, Green, Fulvana, and Louisa. I actually added Buckingham, because we've been talking about this for quite some time. I added the other side of the mountain and all that stuff. And meeting those criteria, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, there is only 34 homes available.
What do you think, Gary? Jump in here on this.
It's pretty crazy. I think we've reached a time where central, not just Albemarle, Charlottesville, but Central Virginia is just, affordable housing is gone. It just is what it is. I don't see any near term solutions to this. I think builders are doing what they can, but they can only move so fast.
Well, I'm rather vocal about this. I think green tape needs to be created out of red tape. In other words, red tape needs to be turned into the green tape. And it sounds like you're working in the Charlottesville market, right, quite a bit. So I'm going to just throw this out there. How do you feel about the new? Let's see how we go.
You're going to get me in trouble.
No.
That is a very common phrase on the show.
Yeah, that is a very common phrase on the show.
And it's usually me, brother.
And this lives on the internet forever, and your peers in 7 brokerages are watching the program right now.
Okay.
And Jamie Turner, who we're talking about his rental right now, literally said, I signed a 12-month lease moments ago. Get this, we talked about this literally before the show. A travel nurse with a 12-month contract at UVA.
Yeah.
Not sure why they did not look in Charlottesville, but she's our new tenant.
Awesome.
Jamie Turner, the property we're talking about here. So we should go travel nurses and the value there, because we were talking about that. But first, how about getting Gary Palmer into trouble here with a lot of people watching?
Oh, man. Well, I won't get into too much here, but just make it simple. So the most recent project.
We're Marines, so that's good. Keep
yeah, break it
simple,
down.
good.
I was hoping to start construction January of 2021. I just really started construction, aside from some demo, about 4 weeks ago. So literally 12 months longer than my initial projection. There was some red tape. I don't know if it was all the city's fault, but I think with COVID too, the city is just naturally moving a little bit, slower with building permits, especially when it's a little more complicated and it's a commercial property and a redevelopment. So it caught me. I mean, I'm kind of a newbie, Keith. I've done a few projects, but this is probably my largest project, as far as my career goes. So
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, and I was told I have my own mentors, coaches,
Sure.
consultants that I
Sure.
and they all told me, add 6 to 12 months to whatever you think. Because if you're dealing with,
It's
the
kinda
city of
like when you-
Charlottesville and Albemarle County, you better add that into your projections.
It's kind of like when you want to renovate something. If you think it's going to cost you $1, it's really going to cost you $2.
Right.
It's always going to cost you double. So this is not new, right? I chair the Piedmont Community House Land Trust, and we developed a bunch of projects and built some units on Nassau Street. It received the money from the city, by the way. Took a year and a half to get the permits, the building permits. A year and a half.
Yeah.
So where I was trying to get you into a little bit of trouble is the city just adopted this missing middle in the comp plan. It's about ready to go into the zoning side of things. You're a developer. You're in the space. Is that going to help? Is that something that is interesting to you as a developer and builder?
So articulate that again. You said
So what the city has went through this future land use plan, and they're saying, assuming the zoning gets adopted, they're saying that on the single-family detached lots, you can put multiple
they're trying to
units.
increase density.
Create density, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if they approve the zoning for that, is that something of interest to you, or do
Well,
you
I think it's
it
of
helps?
interest to everybody in Charlottesville. I mean, we need more density. I haven't looked at the comp plan recently. I did a few months ago. I saw that there were, I think the accessory dwelling unit, trying to increase density in some of the areas in the city will help. I mean, I think we need a lot more than that, though, to really solve this crisis that we have. But it does help me, yeah. As a developer, I think anytime you can increase density, it gives developers the ability to go out and be more aggressive. As you know, Keith, I mean, that's a key metric in any developer's handbook is density. I mean, what's the density? If it's increased, a lot of times you can pay more. You can, and create more opportunities for people in Charlottesville and Albemarle.
Scott, jump in here. What do you think?
No, I mean, isn't that the key? I mean, that's kind of, Gary broke that down pretty well. And as far as how that's going to help, it really also has to do, how do we turn red tape into green tape to get people like Gary better facilitated to shorten those runs from start of plan to actually start a project? Does that?
Absolutely. I mean, if I started in 2021, those apartments will be built and rented out to people right now. And I'd be on to my next project. But I'm not.
Folks are asking, would you do another project in the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County again after going through this?
Well, let me finish this one.
Okay. So the jury's still.
I probably would, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is yes, I would. But I would certainly, again, and this hurts the market, but if I'm looking at the next building or the next development project, I've got to factor in increased cost for red tape. So that's going to make me less competitive, and but I have to.
There's another good question. And Johnny Ornelas, welcome to the program. So live on 15 Facebook pages, and the pages are hopping right now. Gary, how has your footprint expanded with showings and or client dynamics in this market with Charlottesville and Albemarle County having such limited inventory?
Well, Ashley and myself, we're a small boutique firm, and we've, done a good job of kind of our outreach. So we've got a fair share of buyers. I mean, I just preach patience Jerry, in this market to our buyers. They just have to be. I mean, we're still finding buyers homes. The negotiations are still tough, but we're making it work. I know Keith's in the business too. I think he'd probably say something, you got to stay the course. I tell my buyers, hey, look, don't get discouraged if the first 3 homes you write offers on, they don't get accepted. Don't throw in the towel, just keep going, and if you do.
I've seen, there's been a lot of emotion with rate change, and I try to reach out to everybody that I've got pre-approved. That way, if they were shopping at the tippy top of where they we're not having to have a new conversation if they go to make an offer on something that they might not qualify for because it's got an increased HOA on top of increased rates. So it's really, like anything else, it's everything we do. It's about convenience and managing expectations. So are you preparing them for the best mental, place that they can be when they go through this?
That's the sizzle reel right there. Mark that timestamp right there for Scott. Well said. Scott Morris of Ross Mortgage. We'll cut that post-show. Keith Smith.
So are you seeing folks that you're speaking with, and I was asked this question yesterday, so I wanted to ask you today, if interest rates go up a slight, quarter point, eighth point, are you seeing them jumping out, or they're just absorbing that and moving forward? In other words, are you seeing deals falling apart over that?
I'm not seeing deals fall apart over that. What I'm watching today looks good. I'm like waiting for pricing to come out. I'm like super excited.
So let's not look over there.
Okay.
It's going to change 5 minutes from now.
But anyways,
No, but this is good.
This is very good.
For once.
For once,
But
in the last 30 days.
The point I'm trying to get out for us practitioners in the field, right, on the end of it, and for other real estate agents and practitioners that are watching, your conversation's a little bit more in depth, right? You're explaining things a little bit more.
Communicate at a high level.
A high level, but people are not jumping out.
No, people aren't jumping out.
That's an important piece of information, I think, to get out. It might be people are a little
people are getting their feelings hurt, but they're not jumping out. And if they're being communicated with, then they understand, like, look, you are not bringing cash to the table. And if they go, well, what does that even mean? Like, then you can't go in and pay all the money in one lump sum for this property. You are going to be up against that. You can't waive the appraisal because the bank's going to require it. These are things that you have to have in order to execute this transaction. And as long as they're being educated that when they're up against 8 other offers, look, we're going to find you a property where that's not the case, but you can't lose your motivation to keep going after them. And then, 6 months down the road, be like, oh my gosh, I've spent almost another $20,000 in rent to my landlord. Like, your focus needs to be on finding the property that you can be happiest with and pull the trigger on.
Gary,
Mark that one, J-Dubs. That timestamp. Go ahead, Keith Smith.
Hopefully you can answer this, because I was asked this question the other day. Is now the right time to buy? What do you think?
I think it is. I mean, historically, in 2000 and I guess it was 2000. Gosh, my brain, I'm getting a little bit older. 2006, when I bought my first property, rates were 7.5%.
Yeah, mine was 6 1/8 in my first.
And I was told that I was young. I was in my low 20s at the time, and everyone was telling me rates were good.
Good for you, brother.
And I was like, it's 7.5%, for an investment loan for just a rental property. And I was jumping all over.
Yeah, dude, I was on a trampoline doing jumping jacks.
I was on a mission to buy everything I could because rates were so low at 7.5%. So, for me, everything's relative. So if rates go up to 4, the key is, if you're buying in this market right now, I think, you tell your buyers, look, if you're only going to live here right now for 1 or 2 years, you may want to hit the pause button and think about buying, right? But if you're going to be here for more than 5 years, especially more than 5, if your rates go up a little bit, as long as you have the cash flow, and what I mean by that is if your debt service, if the rental income of the property exceeds your debt service and your operating costs, it's a pretty safe buy because you can always convert it to an investment, and then you've got free cash flow coming after. Because the market, we're in peak market. There's no doubt. The last real estate correction was in 2007-8, and I know a lot of different sources are saying that the real estate market's going to hum for another 5 to 6 years. I don't know if I buy that. I think the real estate market might cool down. Well, I think there's 2 things. Well, the foreclosures are starting to come out now, right? I'm getting some of those calls. I guess the forbearance.
From investors?
Yeah, from the investor perspective, people who are, there was a forbearance last year. I think they put it in July. So now banks are starting to talk to these people who haven't paid their mortgage in a couple years, and they're saying, look, it's time to pay. Well, some people are. Some people are reworking that out.
And they're giving some very enticing plans to people who don't even need to requalify, which originally was what they were going to do. But I've had people who have reached out to me, and I was like, there's no way that I can refinance you out of this. And they're saying, hey, look, my servicer reached out, and they're saying that they're not even going to requalify me as long as I start making payments at this new rate on this new contract on this new date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is that good for the market, though?
Well, it's preventing. Where are these? That's a really complicated question. We're not leaving all these people without homes who aren't going to credit qualify to get into a rental if they're actually willing to do the work. I mean, I think the human cost is much greater than when we talk about the market cost in that aspect.
Well said. Well said. Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. I 100% agree with you on the human cost standpoint. From a market dynamic standpoint, it's taking inventory that otherwise should have been on the market
Yeah.
and removing it from the market.
I like that perspective too.
You are a capitalist,
But-
okay. But I understand the human cost, and give me this perspective. You're the expert. I'm going to learn from you here. What is it doing to the loan cycle? Did it just significantly increase the loan cycle, meaning the owner of the home is staying in the home even longer, which means years from now that home is going to not really come on the market for an extended period of time?
It's worse than that. They're throwing 40-year mortgages at them.
Yeah. Okay. So think about what a 40-year mortgage could do to a market dynamics there.
So let's press pause and think about that for a second. So are we saying that these people who went through this incredibly difficult time and were offered a parachute out are going to be in those homes forever? Or are we saying that, let's say that they make life changes that either one or two things is going to happen. They're not going to continue to pay these people and they are going to get evicted, or they are going to go through the same life experiences as your normal purchase seller buyer does, and 3 to 5 years from now when they've got their house in order, they're going to turn around and sell the property and they're going to repay, or they're going to end up refinancing because they're going to be in a position credit-wise to do that at that point. I don't think this is I don't think this is like ringing the bell and like now these people are here forever. Dude, they're going to go through life just like they were going through life before.
I think from an investor's perspective, there's opportunity, without a doubt. This forbearance and foreclosure, I went through the great time of unpleasantness, so I understand what foreclosures volumes mean. All it's going to do, and I just read a great article in Inman about it, all it's going to do is increase the inventory a little bit.
Right.
The volume of
It's low.
potential foreclosures are minuscule.
Yeah.
At one point in time, it was 10, 20, 30%. It was huge numbers of the market.
I also think that prevents the limbing effect. And
The what?
The limbing effect.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, let's say they started pushing all these people out. All right. And then there were people who could pay but choose not to pay and say, well, I can walk away too. And that's where a problem, I think,
But where they're going
begins
to go,
be
right?
created.
So
Sure.
that's I think that's the human factor that you were talking about. But I think as far as
Scott Moore showing some empathy over here on the show today.
I'm a nice guy.
You are a nice guy, Scott Morris.
but market impact and changing this 34 to 120, it's not going to impact the market that much, because what is happening, and I'm working with some folks like this, what's happening, these servicers are giving them this, hey, you start your payments down, we'll tack it on the back end, and we'll do it a 40-year, and they'll kick the proverbial can down the road. This may come back and bite us on the butt after your 5 years. I don't disagree with that, but I think in the short term, I don't think it's going to, it may help the inventory a little bit, definitely help the investor component.
Yeah,
On it.
I don't see a 2007, 2008, anything like that. I just maybe see a little bit of a cool down. Even though inventory levels are still going to be low, I think if interest rates do go up, and Scott, I don't know what you're thinking. Do you have a projection for what's the median interest rate going to be?
I mean, the
in
people who
2022?
actually who get paid the big money, they're wrong all the time. So I can say whatever I want.
There you go. You have a prediction?
So I said that rates were going to go higher faster than, and I'm sticking to this. Depending on what happens now, if something happens with Russia and everybody dives back into U.S. bonds and then rates come back down, I mean, that's not an ideal reason for it to happen, but it's certainly a piece that's on the table. I think if we actually have to hedge inflation and the government steps up and they increase rates higher than what they have previously forecasted, meaning making 50 bip moves instead of 25 and making more of them in the cycle than they've talked about, we're overall, if that keeps bond purchases to continue to slow, we are going to see rates increase faster than what they forecasted.
Look, to what?
What do you think?
8%?
I said 5%. I say 5%.
Okay.
So cheap
Well,
money.
if they go to 5%, then this is the scenario that it'll cool things down a little bit, I think. I mean, borrowing power at 5%.
But if we still got 23 million people that would have to find a place to live,
So-
where do they go?
And on top of that, I'll add, and then Gary, you jump in.
This
UVA
is more devil's advocate than anything
Yeah,
else.
for sure. Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. UVA said they're going to hire more people than ever. We have multiple employers bringing in people from out of market
Right.
into this market and setting up headquarters in Charlottesville to poach
Yep.
the UVA talent. So new buyers and a ton of millennials jumping into the mix.
Yeah. So the Q3 report, the CAR Q3 report from 2021 to 2020 showed the median sale price in Charlottesville actually went down 2%. Again, I'm not saying that's an indicator of what I'm trying to say here, but Albemarle was up 2%. If you look at the surrounding counties, I think Fluvanna was up something crazy like 17%. Greene was up pretty big too, 15%.
Orange was up.
Nelson.
Orange and Nelson were up.
Yeah.
But if you look at Albemarle and Charlottesville on the Q3 report, okay, the median sale price pretty much is already flat over from into Q3 2021 so I mean, if rates continue to rise, I don't think the foreclosure, that's not going to be a big factor in all this, as Keith is right. I think there was like 1.5 million
And-
to
and-
2, which is nothing relative to what's going to
At
provide
one,
enough
at
inventory.
one point in time, I believe it was like 10 million
Yeah.
that were on foreclosure. It was a huge
So this is
number.
nothing really.
But adding a little context to him, and then Keith, you jump in the mix. While Q3 was, we'll call it flat, to put it to context, Q1, Q2, and Q4 on the flip side were extremely high from values upticking in those jurisdictions that you're mentioning. In fact, he put some numbers out on the show yesterday.
And Monday.
Albemarle County, was it Monday? 37 active listings, median asking price of $375K, Albemarle County.
So at a certain age, you can't remember 48 hours ago. So that's the age I'm at. But the bottom line is the cars is a lagging indicator. Right. It's so lagging. So what we're doing on Mondays, and I would encourage you to watch, is I'm doing year-over-year comparisons. Right. The snapshot, last 30 days, last 3 weeks. So what's happening here is the prices are going up in the last 30 days. Inventory is just taking a plummet, and this is all a great conversation. I was, as you guys were talking rates, Gary, I tend to make bets on the show, and I lose them all, and I'm glad.
He's not won one yet.
I'm glad to lose.
I think he's 0 for 4.
And I'm glad to lose them. My bet is we won't exceed 4 by the end of this year. So anybody on here want to take that bet for a bottle of booze? Over, under?
Scott, that's up your alley right there.
Yeah, I'll take it. I've got no, yeah, I'm a
Little bottle, just a little bottle.
Okay, so the over-under is 4%.
4%
4% is a push. You're saying it will stay below 4%
it
on
will.
December 31, 2022.
I think it will.
And he's saying they uptick above 4%.
I'm saying it's over 4.
So we'll bring you back and see who wins, and I'll bring a bottle of booze. What do you think?
I'm gonna go just slightly over 4,
Yeah.
4.25.
So the last time we were north of that was in 19. We were 4.5, depending on where you were, 4.95, 5 o'clock, 5%. Excuse me. How was your business in 19?
Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Really good.
So I don't think interest rates are going to have a huge impact. But I come from a really, and Jerry, because I've said this 1,000 times, I come from a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, his first house, 18+% interest rate. I mean, his first place, you said 7?
7.5.
I
Mine,
would've-
6+.
But along with that, when we let's not forget inflation and average wage growth and all the other pieces of that puzzle.
Well, that's kind of what I wasn't going to get into.
It's all I don't want to call it a shell game, but we're pricing in affordability. If that was because people could afford to pay that interest based on other mitigating factors in the economy in their lives, and now rates are low, which allows for pricing to be high.
Sure.
You've got to take that into account.
So I'm basing my bet on inflation stabilizing. If it doesn't, then I've lost.
What do you mean by unstable? What
And
is
lost.
He's
bet.
basing his
Okay.
bet on the supply chain issues fixing and working themselves out, the labor shortages fixing and working themselves out. We're already seeing some of the supply chain issues fixed
Well, our
and worked
percentage
out.
inflation is the highest it's been since the 80s. So what I'm saying is I'm hoping that gets under control and walks itself back a little bit. If it doesn't, then rates will obviously go over 4.
Let's acknowledge some of the viewers coming in, and then we have to acknowledge the phenomenon that's been put on the feed from the PEP. Repping the PEP over here.
All right,
Two
all right.
people repping the PEP. First, we're going to acknowledge your wife is so proud of you, Gary Palmer. She's putting that in the feed right now. Actually, we respect the supportive better half right there. I have one at home as well. Molly Morgan, Deborah Hairston, and Keith Jones. Hello. 4 states on our heat map watching this program here. North Carolina, Maryland, Tennessee, and Virginia. Welcome to the program. 3 of your colleagues in the space on the show right now. We're starting to get the ones that watched last week marking it down and new ones coming in, which is good. How about this phenomenon? And Jamie, thank you for adding this to the show here. And I'll read it verbatim because I've experienced this as well. One interesting phenomenon we saw with applicants for our townhome rental. The property, they are looking to buy a property, but they keep losing out on houses, and their current landlords will not do month-to-month or short-term leases for them. So they're stuck in this scenario where they have to renew on 1-year leases, which is keeping them from getting in the housing market game. He said 20% of the applicants that were looking to rent our townhome are a demographic like this. And I've seen that as well. So 90 days, maybe before their lease is up, they give notice to the landlord. They think 90 days is ample time to potentially purchase the first-time home.
Not in this market.
They quickly realize that is not the case. 90 days then turns into 45 days, then turns into 30 days. Then they're clawing or begging the landlord back, please, dear God, let me keep this space so we don't have to move out of it and do all that hubbaloo, whatever the word is. And then the landlord, guess what they have? Some freaking leverage. And then that 3.75%, 4.75% increase turns into 9% increase, and they call it the cost of doing business. Anywhere you guys want to go on this topic?
I'll ask a question.
Ooh.
So I think
Good pivot.
part of it might have to do, well, I'm asking Gary the question, he's going to be, I think part of that is probably a pain point more so with the time of year. There's a lot of landlords may not want to deal with having to replace the tenant in winter. If this was going maybe month to month, April, May, June, that could maybe afford you some more leverage for those that are going through it. Somebody who has some tenants, is that?
Some on both sides. I'm a landlord, I have tenants, and I work with a lot of buyers. I mean, I haven't found that to be too much of an issue. What I tell my buyers, look, go to your landlord 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
Tell them you're getting into the market. Don't wait 2 to 3 months before you want to buy a home in this market. And have a conversation, see what your options are. I mean, what I've found is if they go to their landlord and they say, look, we're going to get in the market. We don't know where that's going to go. But if we find another tenant to replace our lease, are you okay with letting us out when we find it? And most landlords are okay with that as long as they don't lose money. I don't care. I mean, if my tenant comes to me and says, look, I'm going to buy a house. If I find a tenant at the same rent or the new rent, and there's no loss of income to you, do you care? I don't care.
Not at all. As long as I'm your realtor. That's,
yeah, well,
I was about to say,
yeah.
I have no problem with that if I help you with it.
Yeah.
But
But
You
I
beat
mean,
me to it.
it's not always that simple. I mean, but I
It was a
found that
softball. He
We're
tossed it
just
out.
having fun, Gary.
Yeah.
We're just having fun.
6 months in advance, though, is the key.
But what you're saying is impactful, right? People are sometimes afraid to talk to you, right? Because you're the landlord. Back to this emotional
People are afraid of everything, bro.
of component. If you're ready to do it, talk to him. The market is such a, hey, no problem, we can get you out. You know, you might have a deposit issue or something like that. But it's not going to be, hey, you got to give me a check for 6 months. Not a problem. By the way, hey, I got 3 guys or 3 people behind ready to come in.
Well,
have the conversation.
It's so easy to find renters, especially if you're in Charlottesville, Albemarle, that most of the
And
tenants
evidently
that are-
Orange County.
Yeah, and Orange County now too. So it's not really what I've found with most of my buyers. They've had no issue finding another tenant.
If this was 2008, 2009, 2010, that may have been a different conversation.
Sure, but
Right.
this is even. Let's.
'Cause you wouldn't have people
want
backfilling
to. I
it.
want to talk about that. So, we've talked about this: the great unpleasantness, our blessed area. Even when we went through that, dude, we were not Las Vegas. There, we weren't.
Yeah,
You didn't
no
drive
doubt.
into like, oh my God, it's just this is an entire part of the city no one lives in anymore. Like people, it looked very normal here. There was a lot of signs. There was a lot of signs in front of houses, but it wasn't like this mass exodus.
Real estate, we learned this from Lisa Sturtevant, who's our Virginia Association's lead economic advisor. We're second in GDP in the state. So when this all happened, it affected everybody. But it really didn't deeply affect but just a few pool of people. Yours truly would be one of them on the end of it. And what I wanted to pivot a little bit, I have a 15-year running spreadsheet of our sales and actives and pendings and all this stuff. To me, where we are right now and today in the market, it feels more normal. Right? It feels more normal about people are not quite ready to put houses on the market because it's after Christmas, we got snow. Does it feel that way to you in your opinion? Or does
I'd
it feel
agree with
differently?
that. COVID really changed the cycle
Sure.
in 2020, and I feel like now your sellers are, hey, let's go to market in March and April, and basically before 2020, those conversations are sounding more normal.
Yeah, so the conversations we're having is call Interstate Service Company, have them come in and let's paint, let's do a little bit of work on the kitchen, let's work on this great time and put it on there. The conversation we're having, and I'm sure you're having them too, is, well, the house is ready. Now let's do this now because there's a lack of inventory. Are you having those conversations too?
Yeah, and it's house specific, as to what makes the most sense, I think.
What about the sellers that are saying, where am I going to go next? How are you navigating that?
Great question.
There's a couple options there. I mean,
Are they moving out of market? Are they staying in market and trading up? I mean, the money that they're making on the sale of their home, is it being eroded by the top dollar they're paying for the next?
It depends on where they're buying and if they're going up or down, right? But I mean, there's options. I mean, some sellers are short term. They're doing some short term rental and just knowing that it could be a grind to find the next
I was
home.
going to touch on that. So some of the things I'm seeing is people that are selling, getting into a short-term rental either while waiting on new construction or while waiting to purchase that next home.
That inventory to pick up.
Which does eat away, minimum, depending on how much they made or what they executed those funds. Do they pay off a lot of debt? Are they using it for a down payment? What are their goals? So some of that money is, getting washed in that process. But at the same time, it all depends on the individual and what their situation is.
It depends on where they are in their life and their buyer
Yeah.
profile, right? I'm an empty nester.
Yeah.
Unless I'm ready to move into something, I'm not moving into something, moving my stuff twice and then moving it back in there. It's not a fiscal thing. It's just
A grumpy old man thing.
If you're if you're selling a $600,000 house,
Thank you for
and you're
showing
moving
up,
down to a
Scott. Thank you for
$400,000
showing up.
house, then you're going to be better off.
You got
even if
meat on
have
the
to-
bone.
Yeah, even if you have to
Yeah.
absorb some of those short-term costs, you're still probably better off.
So putting your real estate broker, real estate agent hat on, what other tools do you have in your tool chest to help that question that Jerry asked?
And you can't say move to Southwestern Virginia because we have Pamela Freeman saying go Gary for Pulaski, Virginia right
wow.
now, giving you some props right now. You got 5 states on the show as we speak here. So what's the answer to the key question for you, GP?
There is no one tool.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Keith knows that. it really is specific to the house, and I'm not deflecting, maybe I am a little bit, but there really is no trick to this. Every person's situation is unique. Their equity position in their home is different from the next sellers. The market that they're moving, are they going up? Are they going down? Are they going to be in Albemarle, Green? Like, where are they going? You have to play all that in, and I'm not, again, maybe not cop out, but it's a little more complicated.
But it's not a cop-out. You're right on the right out.
You have to sit down with your client, and you have to go through 10 to 15, I'll call them variables associated with selling the home and buying, and you have to make a decision based on those things. It's not one criteria or one thing. There's
High
too
level
many-
communication.
Yeah.
So I've said this once, I'll say it a million times on the show. This iPhone I'm holding in my hand is not going to do that, right? Right? It might be a great place to find a home or do it, but you need Scott, the trusted advisor. You need Gary, the trusted advisor. You need Keith and Yonna, the trusted advisor. You need Jerry Miller, the trusted advisor, to help navigate that, because it's just not one thing. This is not like getting on, what's the travel thing, right?
Orbitz? Or,
There you go, and booking a flight. This
Right.
is multiple things, because one thing never affects one thing. It always affects many other different
so
things.
I mean, and part of that, well, people go there to start a search, and then they go to a human that they trust is going to care for them during the process. Like, my trust of humans is always going to be greater than the trust of
An algorithm.
of the internet.
Yeah, well said. Thank you very much for saying that. This question's come in from Buster Fox. Back-to-back shows he's
All
watched
right,
you
what up, Buster?
on this program. Buster Fox, we love you here. I'm going to paraphrase, Buster, your comment. And he wants to know the perspective on 1031 exchanges, investors, and if it's cannibalizing any inventory from first-time home buyers. He said, I've had 2 of these hit this year already. Thoughts on 1031s being an issue for first-time home buyers and potentially driving bidding wars for properties. We'll put a little ribbon in layman's terms around 1031s for viewers and listeners. To minimize some capital gains exposure, you can sell an investment property and then roll the gains into another property. But you have to do it in a very short time window. You have to identify a couple of properties. You can then replace some of those properties you've identified with some other ones if you find some
Let's
new
use
ones,
the
come
word
on.
like property.
Yeah, like
And,
property, absolutely.
I don't want to get pinned down on the days, but it's something like, is it 90 and 180? You've got
Yeah,
90
I think
days.
that's right.
It's
And I'll-
exactly 90,
Yeah.
180.
I'll confirm, but so the topic for the table are 1031 exchanges impacting first-time buyers in this market. That's a great question. You want to start with that, Gary?
So I've done 2 1031s myself. They both have been more in the multifamily arena, so I don't see that being a huge factor for inventory and first-time home buyers.
Yeah, I've done, I'd say 4 in the last 4 months, and they've been investors who are going from into properties that 2 of them were, I would not say suitable for a first-time home buyer.
Were they multifamily?
No, they were regular. They were distressed, and they're in the RRR program kind of people. And one of them, was just talking to a buddy of mine who ended up making it a cash deal for the rest of it and executing, and it was a clean property, but it was just something on a little higher end. I don't think none of the 4 really checked the box. One of them maybe for a first-time home buyer.
The short answer is no. The long answer, as we say, maybe yes, maybe no, yes.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, because at the same time, could some of those been for the right person, a 203K, where they went in and, we had 6 months to, really put the whole thing together?
We have a unique dynamic happening in the marketplace, right? Which, to go to Scott's position, and I agree with you, we're so insulated. We're not Phoenix, right? We're not these large things. But this whole iBuyer thing that Zillow's dumping that's coming back in, they're being bought by investors. So there'll be some little 1031s going on in that end of it. But from my perspective, the inventory pool, as I refer to as the kiddie pool, and it's so freaking thin. Even if you take 2 or 3 out of 34, it's a percentage impact. Right on it. So it will now once the once the inventory starts growing up there, it probably will not have that much. But, if you and I own a rental piece of property, I own several myself, and I want to sell that and buy something else, I'm going to do 1031 exchange.
Right.
That's going to take a unit off of the resale market. So it will impact it slightly, just not in an impactful way.
Sure, but to the question, how does that affect first-time home buyers? Are these properties that are being purchased first-time home buyer properties? That's the kind of.
I know the ones we bought were at
Okay.
that price point.
Cool.
So.
How about this one? Kevin Higgins, we'll get to your comment. Cully Baggett in Green has got some comments for us that we'll get to. In fact, we'll get to Cully's now. I would think that with the lack of inventory in the market, that it would be driving the new construction market than I'm seeing in the local areas. What's your view on that? I know Charlottesville has a tremendous amount of new construction pertaining to the apartments and townhomes living styles, but I'm speaking more of the lack of new construction in the more rural areas of Central Virginia. So new construction, rural areas of Central Virginia, Cully Baggett and Green. You want to start with that one, Gary Palmer?
I mean, it's happening. New construction's happening. I think to what we talked about earlier on the show, it's not at a pace that's going to solve our problem.
I think that's something we talk about every show.
And I've watched the show sometimes, and I've heard you guys talk about this before. The builders are out, they're swinging the hammer, it's happening. But the red, again, there's.
But those are projects that have been approved.
Right, so we get
And
back to
that's
the
a
red tape, back to, developers and builders trying to get the next wave going. That's where I think some of the
Well, it's not going in the right direction, because Green just rejected a new subdivision, so did Fulvana County.
Yeah.
So they're not getting approved. So if they're not getting approved, they're not going to go through site plan, they're not going to get
Right.
built and that stuff.
If anything, Waynesboro and the Shenandoah Valley is seeing the uptick, Cully, in new construction. And I think the inventory shortage that we're seeing in Albemarle and Charlottesville and Central Virginia is driving tremendous tailwinds behind the Shenandoah Valley. Now, the question is, are we going to start seeing agents in the car footprint expand their footprint to Shenandoah Valley to accommodate perhaps a larger pool of rooftops over there that Central Virginia does not have? Your better half has this comment: contingencies are important in this market. Having a contingency in place for buyers that allow them to, for sellers and buyers to allow them to find a new home in such low inventory scenarios. That's a good point, and Keith's made that point before, having that contingency in place. Anyone want to shed some light on that?
It's one of those tools. Again, there's several things you can do, but certainly, that's worked well for sellers before. You make the sale of your home contingent on finding a home, and you're protected. You don't have to move. Now, you might hinder your ability to command, market price a little bit with that, because, some buyers might not find that appealing.
Right.
But you get that certainty of knowing, look, if I don't find a home, I don't have to move.
And then it also kind of impacts who's, like you said, the buyers are going to look at that. Well, hold it, because we're going to have to put it in the listing.
But it does help the let's make a deal game. So if we've got a buyer who is well qualified, let's say they've got all the down payment money, but they could use the closing costs, and we've got somebody who's going to sit in the house for 30, 60, X amount of days, it helps the negotiation to get those deals done.
I see seller possession agreements working a lot better than that, because it allows the seller to close, to receive the cash, whatever equity they might have, and they can move forward. The buyer, owns the home, and then they have to just figure out what they're doing for 3 months or 60 days or 90
Seller
days.
possession agreement, when the seller sells their home, guys, to a buyer, and then at closing, they strike a deal where the buyer cannot move into their house right away, and the seller actually stays in the home longer and pays rent to the new buyer. How many of those have you seen?
I've done a few. It's not uncommon.
Kevin Higgins got this comment for the roundtable. What do you think the future of Seville office buildings will be? And can office buildings be the opportunity to increase residential inventory for this market?
Now, so as a developer, I would love if the city, the question comes down to the zoning, and
Right.
Can you take an office building kind of like this and convert it easily into multifamily or to condos to create some inventory? And that'd be great, because office is, it's slowing down a little bit. And so I think there's an opportunity to add some density in Charlottesville, Albemarle, if the localities will allow it. But you need cooperation from them to allow these conversions to take place. But I would definitely be looking at that, and yeah.
I have some a little bit of insight on this. Interestingly, this building here allows the conversion of the first and second floor to residential if the association will approve it. So if you have association control, you can pivot the first and second floor to residential and build micro apartments, should you want. And the water and plumbing is already in place for that conversion. Just throwing that out there.
Geez, I wonder why.
Just throwing that out there. And we're going to have this question. Richmond American has started new development in the town of Orange County. First in a while for its kind for Orange County. Richmond American, new development in Orange County. So we have some new rooftops on the horizon in Orange. And dude, Gordonsville is on the feed quite a bit here. That area is blowing up. Anybody doing any deals over in Gordonsville, financing any deals in Gordonsville that you're seeing?
Yeah, so one of the builders I work with, they've increased their footprint there. They've been pretty friendly. There's some lending things to keep in mind. They've got they're limited as far as some of the price points compared to surrounding counties as far as what you can finance there. But the builders that I work with have been very mindful with that.
Why is that?
Because of area median income.
That's
so
exactly
depending on the loan program that they're using or the borrower's cash strength, how that would work in getting something done.
So it's interesting, Jerry, you were talking about Augusta County, and so looking at this 275 to 325 attached, detached, what's available, there's 20 available in Augusta County. Not a single one of them is new construction, which is unique. Interesting. Louisa County.
Augusta's a big county, man. Like you get out into like Churchville and some of the super rural areas.
They're spread all over. But Louisa County, out of 20, 3/4 of them are new construction, which is interesting. Stat on that.
What do you make of that stat?
What do you think?
I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, people are going to Augusta. I mean, even from Charlottesville, it's more affordable. So I would think there's a demand there. I'm surprised some builders haven't gobbled up some land and started building.
Part of it is there's been in Louisa County, and I know a little bit about this from some of the boards and commissions I sit on. Louisa County's had a bunch of subdivisions approved time of great unpleasantness. These are the projects that are now starting to come in. So these were projects that, that were approved, site plan was done, whatever it was, it sat dormant for a while, now they're getting built and put in. I think that's where that math is on that.
So they took a 20-year head start on, or I'm sorry, a 12-year head start on Fluvanna in that aspect as well. Okay, good job, Fluvanna. Let's go.
So there's a true Fluvanna, and he and I have known each other. I don't know if you shared this since he was 0, and had the misfortune of actually operating some equipment for one of these days when I was building a couple of decades ago on that end of it. But I'm a Fluvannaite, so it's he's right. We missed out on water, and we missed out on this.
Are you guys confident that 2022 will be your best year in business?
I believe every year is my best year in business, but that's
good
just
for
my mindset. So yes, I'm going to go out and say this will be my best year.
I feel similar.
I go to the plate thinking I'm never going to strike out. So yeah.
Dude, you hit bombs every time?
That's right.
You're in the box? I like it. Chicks dig the long ball, Scott Morris. Keith Smith, are you confident?
I love that attitude, and I am an all-in guy. I'll think by the time we have our show next year, I think the math's going to be a little lower than next year.
And strictly because of inventory?
Strictly because of inventory. There's just, I was asked by somebody, you must be doing really good. And I said, well, if I can't close a house, I don't get paid. There you go. That's kind of how that goes. I'm optimistic about it. I'm always am. You don't be in the field that we're all in without being all in 110%. But I think when we crunch the numbers next year, you'll find us down a little bit, and it's purely a lack of inventory.
Who is building in Louisa? Liberty Homes, Betha Builders, who else?
I'll let you guys talk, and I'll try to.
Jefferson Home Builders.
You said Jefferson?
Jefferson, they're in Orange, they're not in Louisa. We're talking Louisa specifically?
Yeah.
Liberty, MGR Development, and who are Liberty. It's all Liberty.
Yeah, that's mostly what I see, Liberty.
Yeah. Liberty's making moves here. This question specifically for Gary. Are you looking at any areas outside of Charlottesville for development investment properties? If so, where?
I'm not. I'm pretty committed to Charlottesville, Albemarle. Always have been. Even when I started buying properties, 15 years ago, I just stayed in Albemarle and Charlottesville. I like the rentability aspects of being, close to UVA. I think if the market ever does shift and shifts a little bit, it will over the next 2 decades. I just feel like, Charlottesville, Albemarle is a little bit more insulated than some of the surrounding counties. It's kind of what I saw a little bit in 2007-8. I just started investing, so I was caught up in a couple flips, and then the market just tanked, and I was like, oh gosh, I was 24 years old and thought I was in trouble, but honestly, I did okay, and I think a lot of that was just because I had chose to invest in Charlottesville, Albemarle. So my rents were high enough to cover my debt and save me from some losses and hold properties that if I had been in the surrounding counties, I may not have been able to hold.
Do you think having the internet availability in today's market kind of unburdens that, and what we're seeing as far as EV, and so people who are, let's assume that the cost to commute for some individuals gets lower, and for them actually not having to commute at all, even into the surrounding counties have more high-speed internet access, or if Elon Musk's satellites ever actually start doing what they're said they're to do.
Elon Musk comes up a lot when you're on the show, Scott.
Now I'm
You're a fan of Elon.
I don't mind the headlines,
Okay.
but some of what he does has. We're in a world where that has real life effect to things much larger than Elon's bank account, which is way overvalued, and so is all his stock. So that's what I
Okay, there we go. I like that.
But assuming that some of this stuff starts to work, does it expand where those rents could actually be, because these people don't have to be directly connected. They don't have to be plugged in on commuting 15 minutes. They can be 40 minutes away. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I got a little off track there.
No, that makes sense.
I follow the question. I think you're right. I think that things could change. I still believe, though, that people want to be near things to do. People like the Trader Joe's. People like the downtown mall, and you're not gonna have that right now if you're up in Standardsville, right? Or if you're not yet. So yes, you're right. With internet speeds getting better.
Let's talk Zions and West End Richmond. As that's starting to become more of.
Well, that place is blowing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and places like that could be great opportunities for investors.
I mean, West End Richmond ain't cheap, though.
Yeah.
What are you talking? You're talking the West End, or are you talking Short Pump specifically? Or are you talking both?
I'm talking both. I mean,
West End Richmond is pretty Tony.
It is, but you can be 5 minutes on Pouncey Track, and you're in affordable, type of living.
So for 3.5 decades, the conversation has been Zions Crossroads and Richmond growing, and it's happening, right? It is happening, and it's daisy chaining itself a little bit into the middle of it. Just a quick little stat from NAR. 87% of the millennial buyers last year moved out to suburbs, moved out to rural environment. 87% of them.
You know why that is? I mean, it's the quintessential American dream. The backyard and the picket fence for our kids to play in with the German Shepherd or the Lab running around.
And that trend has been going on pre-COVID. It's just the numbers are just picking up a little bit. A lot, I think, to do with the work at home, this hybrid that I think we're going.
And the increase of people who are coming of age for said dream. That's part of the
23.5 million of them. That's a big number.
Julie Ballard in the mix. Spring Creek is exploding.
Yeah.
She says, Julie Ballard, the realtor. And, I mean, you could speak to that.
I can.
The first deal in Spring Creek history.
Well, I don't know Spring Creek's history, but we have a residential construction going there with a 1 in front of it. Not 100. With
A 7-figure deal in Spring Creek, in Louisa County.
It's be a nice house.
It will be a nice house, wonderful people. It's going to be a great deal, but it's a new construction with the 1 in front of it.
If I had told you a couple year ago that would have happened, would you have?
I remember when they were giving stuff away there.
Well, that's the first $1 million house in Belmont. I was like, that was 3 or 4 years ago at this point.
It was funny. On Friday, it's Ragged Mountain's Run Shop 40th anniversary, and I was talking to Mark, and he's been in it 40 years. I've been in 35 years, and we were just having this conversation, two old dudes going, do you remember in 1988 and 9 how this was? So things change, things grow. It's just the way it is. But I also, with that 15-year spreadsheet I've been talking about, I've also been running percentage appreciation year over year over year. And depending on the area, including the great time of unpleasantness, it's roughly 3 to 5% year over year. And I think what you're saying, Gary, is we're going to get to more stable growth in appreciation, not this double digit, which is
That's when I say cool down, I'm not talking 2007, 8. I'm just saying we can't continue to appreciate at the rate that we
16% is bonkers. It just doesn't work.
And it's funny, and you two guys have these conversations all the time. When you have a conversation with a client going, yeah, it needs to slow down, do they kind of look at you weird and go, but aren't you in this business? But we want it to stabilize, right? Would you agree?
I mean, I think a balanced market or more balanced market is a better real estate market.
Because you guys are in the people business.
Yeah.
I mean, and the last thing you guys want to do, I mean, I don't want to speak for you. The last thing you guys want to do is to drive deals. I mean, probably not the last thing. I mean, I'm sure you guys enjoy doing this as well. But driving deals to super deep-pocketed people and not helping first-time home buyers actualizing the concept of an American dream of buying a home.
Yeah, you can't grow generational wealth if you price all those people out of the market.
Yeah, and that's happening, especially here.
Gary, you answered that question perfectly. Thank you for saving my poorly asked question. But we've been doing this for a long time, my wife and I. We don't buy leads. We don't do anything. Every single one of our transactions are a referral of some sort. They've either seen it on the show or we've done. And if you take this transactional approach, you won't get that referral. Right. And that's just the way you grow this business is you take care of people and sometimes you got to tell them what they don't want to hear. Right. But you're on the right track, brother. You're doing great.
How about the University of Virginia's impact on this? That's a lead for Friday's promo for you. But the University of Virginia's impact on this market, Gary Palmer, and how it's positive and potentially how it could create some negative ramifications.
So which project are we talking about?
I'm just talking about UVA having such an influence on the market.
Oh, okay, just UVA in general.
Yeah.
I mean, there's pros and cons for sure, but by and large, I think that UVA is it's a staple of Charlottesville. I think it draws a lot of people here. I mean, people love the games. I know sometimes with all the students, you can get a little, caught up that traffic over on West Main sometimes, and you're like, gosh, there's kids everywhere. But I love UVA. I think it's a great thing for the town. This is a college town. This is one of the reasons I moved here. When I was, 22, I liked the UVA football games. I was looking to start up a contracting company, and me and my partner, we liked Charlottesville, and UVA had a lot to do with that. That's what brought me here. So
it's the 20-ton elephant in the room, right? It's the one. I wouldn't be sitting here. You wouldn't be sitting here. Jerry wouldn't be sitting here. It's the driver of our region. It's also the stabilizer of our region, right? To Scott's point.
When we talk about being insulated, that's part of what keeps it that way.
Right, versus Southwest Virginia or some other area. I think what Jerry was trying to throw me a softball on Friday, we have Cole Etchie and Alice Rooker from UVA, and if you've been following the news, UVA is committed to affordable housing and assisting in between 1,000 and 1,500 units. I'm on their community engagement team for that end of it, and we're going to sit here and we're going to have a conversation about it, and it was huge that they asked to come here and join Jerry and I and do this, and so if you're available on Friday, chime in. Jerry's fingers will be flying with questions, I'm sure, and chime in.
Sure.
Any final thoughts, fellas? Scott Morris?
No, just same thing as always. Control your controllables, enjoy, make good decisions. If there's any questions, reach out to a trusted advisor, Gary, Keith, myself. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you, and help as many people as possible.
Gary, thank you for being here. It was great to have a developer on the round
Yeah.
table that I can have a conversation with.
Great guy.
Hope I didn't geek out
No.
too much on it. And this is the first time we really got to know each other, so I'm
Other
excited.
than a few transactions we've done, this
Yeah,
is the first time we've gotten face to face. Yeah.
well, now I have to ask, did I do okay?
No, I appreciate it, Jerry. Thanks, Scott, Keith. You guys have been great. Made this easy for me. I'm not the best on camera, so
Dude, you did
great.
I
Dude,
said,
fantastic,
You
fantastic.
guys make me feel comfortable, and I've enjoyed the conversation today.
You did great. You did great. Keith
Appreciate
Smith, Scott Morris, Gary Palmer. I'm Jerry Miller, Judah Wickhauer, the glue behind the scenes, the director of the program. This is Real Talk presented by Ross Mortgage and the dapper Scott Morris.
Thank you. I'll take Dapper.
Yeah. Always hitting the long ball, Scott Morris. We like that guy quite a bit. The I Love Seville show is up in 1 hour and 2 minutes with Jim Hingley, Albemarle Commonwealth's attorney, on the program. It's going to be a good one, guys. We'll see you very shortly. Take care.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Right on, man.
Excellent work.
Okay, cool.
See, I told you, laid back conversation.
It does go by fast. You're right, man.